seated. Shabbat Shalom. We are this week in Parshat Shmini, in Vayikra, the book of Leviticus, and we have this piece we were discussing last night from this week's Parsha, the death of Aaron's two sons, Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu. It's a peculiar piece, and the rabbis really have a field day with it for its ambiguity, for the pieces in which it's not totally clear exactly what happens, exactly what is the nature of the wrongdoing, exactly what is the terrible thing here. But the text says, Moses and Aaron went inside the tent of meeting. When they came out, they blessed the people. Fire came forth. Now, that was the sacrifice that worked okay. Then we have Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avihu. This is right up at the top of chapter 10. If you have your Eitz Chaim, you can read along if you want, 632. Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avihu, each took his fire pan, put fire in it, laid incense on it. They offered before the Lord Eish Zarah, strange fire, Asher lo tziva otam, that had not been commanded to them, V'teitze eish milfanai Adonai, v'tuchal otam. And fire emanated, burst forth, and consumed them. We then get this monologue response from Moses. Moses says to Aaron, "This is what the Lord meant when he said, though through those near to me I show myself holy and gain glory before all the people." Vayidom Aharon, and Aaron was silent. Moses says this thing that is a matter of almost throwaway, which is one of the only places in the Torah I can think of where Moses evoking the name of God feels in some ways less significant than the thing that is about to follow it. Vayidom Aharon, and Aaron was silent. Last night we discussed this paradigm and idea of listening to silence. I have another place in which we're going to look at that same word, vayidom, that silence word in our tradition. What do y'all know about Elijah, the prophet? Yeah, go ahead, David.
He went up to a room in heaven.
Great. He did a lot, so we'll take just that much. Elijah is an interesting figure in that he doesn't die in our tradition. He goes up in a whirlwind, a fiery chariot, but he doesn't actually die like most of the characters in Tanakh. He's a very interesting one. But the fact that he doesn't die is important here. What else do we know about Elijah? Sorry? We opened the door for him. Those of you who are celebrating Pesach may have poured out a cup of wine for Elijah. This is why the whole not dying thing is so important, because he comes back.
He's a symbol of the future.
He's a symbol of the future. Ooh.
Baby naming son. To our Seder.
Thank you, Linda. And what was that, Elise?
They're a little drunk.
And he's a little drunk. Okay, so let me cover both of those real quick. First, he's a symbol of our future. He accompanies us to this idea of redemption at Passover. He shows up to Brit Milah, to the bris, shows up to baby namings. It's this idea that Elijah is wound up in us looking forward into the future in that way. Elise says he's also a little drunk. Rabbi Elise says he's also a little bit drunk. If he is consuming everybody's cup of wine for Elijah, well, it's not milk and cookies, so, that could have an effect on one's state of being in inebriation. But what do y'all know about Elijah from Tanakh?
He fought against people who worship other gods.
He fought against people who worshipped other gods. Interesting. Okay, yeah, David, give us a word.
Sure, so he was prophesying during the reign of Ahab and Jezebel and in Israel and the Northern Kingdom. And he had a contest with the Temple of Baal, one of my favorite series of Tanakh,
Yeah.
where he challenges them to a contest. Whichever god is going to bring down the fire, let him be God, and the other false prophet slain.
Great.
And of course, we all know how that works.
Let's take that much. So, I'm now in the book of Malachim Aleph, Kings, First Kings. And he has what one of my students when I worked at Hillel referred to as a God off. Let's see whose God is better. The Baalim or Kadosh Baruch Hu, the God of the Israelites. They have this sort of God contest to see whose God can light up the whole offering for God, the God off, as it were. And Elijah and our God, of course, win the God off because, well, it's the Hebrew Bible. But Elijah isn't satisfied with mere victory in the God off. Elijah then slays each and every one of those priests of the Baalim with the sword. Kills them all. Massacres them. The thing about Elijah that's pretty interesting to me is that Elijah telescopes through the generations. And Elijah gives us a sense of our own future and our children. But Elijah in Tanakh, you might not want him showing up to your Seder. Elijah in Tanakh is extreme. And that's not me accusing Elijah of that. That is Elijah saying that about Elijah. I am in the book of Kings, 1 Kings chapter 19. The word of the Lord comes to him and says, Elijah, why are you here? And he has this amazing response. Kano kaneti ladonai. He says, I am so... How would you translate that word? I heard somebody saying it. Jealous is one translation. What's another one? Angry, zealous. I am so extreme for God. And when you get that doubling of words like that, kano kaneti, that's like that moti mat in Hebrew, you shall surely die. That's for emphasis. He means it. He is that extreme for God, that zealous, that angry for God. What do you make of the fact that we have this guy at Passover and we have this guy at Brit Milah? We have this figure who may telescope the generations, but we have this far-out extremist come to our most tender moments with babies and children and thinking about Seder and our families. It's a little weird, Tom.
Our faith is something we have to fight for.
Okay, maybe there is an imperative there about the way in which we should behave. I actually think you're correct about that, Tom, but I want to suggest that before we get to this imperative on how it is we should behave, we get God offering a corrective to Elijah for his zealotry and extremism. Why are you here, Elijah? He says, I am so zealous, extreme for God. The God of hosts, Adonai Tzivaot, that's like the God of forces, army. For the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, put your prophets to the sword. I am left alone, and they are out to take me. God says to him, come and stand on the mountain before God. And so, God passed by, it says. Elijah comes out of his little redoubt. There was a great and almighty mighty wind, splitting mountains and shattering rocks by the power of the Lord, but God was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but God was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, there was fire, but God was not in the fire. I heard Judah whispering where we're going this. Yes, after the fire, a soft murmuring sound. Other translations have it as a still, small voice. Or in Hebrew, kol dmama daka. Kol dmama daka. Kol is voice, Daka is sort of soft, and dmama, same word as vayidom aharon. Same word as the silence of Aaron at the loss of his two kids. And that's the place where God shows up to Elijah. Not in the fire, not in the earthquake, not in the slaying of the priests of the Baalim, but the idea of this time, David points out with Achav and Jezebel and all manner of corruption, God is not found in the extremism of it. God is not found in Moshe's justification of the fire consuming the sons of Aaron. God's actually found in this other part, Vayidom Aharon, and called Dmama Daka. This voice that is almost so silent, it's a whisper is how it gets translated. And so that's the piece. When Tom says, well, is there a lesson about how we're supposed to fight for our faith? It's possible. But I want to suggest that actually Elijah needs a little bit of rehabilitating before we can go plug Elijah into our future, into our baby namings, into our Passover Seders, into being at every point in the generations with us. We kind of have to sand off that rough edge of Elijah. Elijah in his extremist form in Tanakh is a hard one to accompany us in our holiest views of the future, as Linda told us. And it takes kol dmama daka, a whispered voice, the backing down from that kind of righteous fury and rage for Elijah to accompany us into the future. Ours is not, I think there is a lesson in here, but I don't necessarily think it's one of holy war and of extremism. I think it is Davka, one of that sometimes in the moments of the greatest tragedy, the death of Aaron's sons, persecution of the Israelites, sometimes in the most shocking and horrifying moment, the answer is not the most intuitive one, which might be extremism, which might be violence, which might be a kind of lashing out. But maybe it's worth taking a beat. Kol dmama daka vayidom aharon is all here to teach us that giving into justifiable responses to tragedy, to giving into extremism, may be fair, may even be what some of the prophets do, but it's not the place in which you are going to find God. And it's also not the place in which Elijah is going to bring us our Jewish future. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We continue on page 155, page 1.